Chapter 1, The Shattered Picture Frame. Act 1, The Fall Begins. The soft hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the apartment. She sat on the kitchen floor, legs folded beneath her, hands limp at her sides. Glass shards glittered across the tiles like tiny pieces of a ruined star, and in the center of them, face down, lay the photo frame. The jagged remains of its protective cover reflected slivers of light from the early evening sun. She didn't cry. Not yet. The tears felt like they belonged to someone else, someone who hadn't already gone numb from watching her world implode. Her name was Claire, 34 years old, architect, neat handwriting, organized fridge, never missed birthdays. Loyal. Too loyal, maybe. She picked up one corner of the frame with trembling fingers. The photo inside was cracked diagonally. Her smile stared back at her, unbroken. His eyes, Daniel's, were caught mid-laugh. And between them stood her best friend, Natalie. The three of them. A perfect lie printed on glossy paper. She had knocked the frame off the shelf by accident. She had only meant to dust it. And yet now, looking at the splintered glass and broken edges, she wondered if it had been something deeper, something her body knew before her mind could catch up. Claire leaned back against the cabinet and closed her eyes. The silence wrapped around her like a thick, wet blanket. Still, no tears. Only the echo of a moment she hadn't understood until now. Just a few months ago, the apartment was filled with warmth. The scent of Daniel's morning coffee, the quiet laugh he reserved only for her, the way he always left her notes, little things like, "Don't forget your umbrella, sunshine," or "Dinner on me tonight, love you." Those moments were her heartbeat. And Natalie had been part of the fabric of her life since they were teenagers. Sleepovers, heartbreaks, college dorm rooms, weddings, they had been inseparable. The kind of friendship that felt more like family. Natalie had been her maid of honor. Claire remembered holding her bouquet with trembling hands, crying happy tears, whispering how lucky she was to marry the love of her life, how naive, how blind. The signs were all there, weren't they? She could see them now, like stains on white linen. Daniel coming home later and later, claiming work had picked up. His phone always face down, the sudden way he pulled away from kisses, as if intimacy had turned into obligation. And Natalie, always around, but off, over-smiling, jumpy, texting during dinners and laughing at things Claire wasn't in on. There was that time Daniel had called her Nat in the middle of a sentence. He brushed it off, said he'd been texting her earlier. Claire had smiled, but something had cracked open, just a little. And there it had festered, quietly, behind every word, every glance. A growing shadow she refused to name. Until yesterday. Claire hadn't been snooping. That was the part that kept replaying in her head. She hadn't gone looking for anything. All she had wanted was her charger, and Daniel had left his laptop open. A message preview blinked at her. "Natalie, you have to tell her. I can't keep lying to Claire anymore. This isn't fair." That was it. One sentence. One knife. She hadn't clicked. She didn't need to. Her stomach had already dropped through the floor. She remembered standing there for a long time, staring at those words. She'd touched the screen as if erasing them would undo their meaning. But they were still there, etched into her brain, into her skin. And that's when everything else had begun to crack. Now, on the kitchen floor, she finally reached for the photo. Her fingers brushed over Natalie's smile. "You were supposed to be my sister." Claire stood slowly. The pieces of glass crunched beneath her feet. She didn't care. Carefully, she placed the frame face down in the trash bin, her movements deliberate, like a quiet funeral. Then, without thinking, she opened a cupboard and pulled out a bottle of red wine. No glass. She unscrewed the cap and took a swig straight from the bottle. The bitterness burned down her throat, but it was better than the emptiness. She leaned on the counter, gripping the edge to keep herself grounded. The apartment was no longer a home. It was a crime scene. Every surface whispered reminders. His jacket on the back of a chair, the pair of earrings Natalie had forgotten in the guest bathroom weeks ago, the framed quote on the wall that read, "Love is loyalty in motion." Claire wanted to rip it all down, but she didn't. Not yet. She just stood there, holding onto the counter like it might save her from drowning. She heard the front door open. Her body stiffened. "Claire?" Daniel's voice. She didn't answer. He stepped into the kitchen, briefcase still in hand. He looked tired, or maybe just guilty. But Claire didn't meet his eyes. She was staring at the wine bottle. He followed her gaze, then looked at the trash. The broken frame. His face paled. "Claire," he started. She looked up. "I saw the message," she said, her voice calm. Too calm. Daniel froze. It's not." "Don't," she interrupted. "Don't insult me." There was a long pause. He swallowed hard. It wasn't supposed to happen. It was a mistake. She laughed, a cold, hollow sound. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. This took effort. Lies. Rehearsals. He said nothing. She stared at him, memorizing his face. Not the man she married. Not anymore. Then she said something she hadn't planned. Something that came from a place deeper than rage. "I'm not going to ask why," she whispered. "Not yet, but you need to go." Daniel opened his mouth, but the look on her face stopped him. He set the briefcase down gently, like any sudden movement might break her. Too late for that. He left without another word. When the door closed behind him, Claire let the silence settle once more. This time, it didn't comfort her. It pressed against her chest like a weight. She sat back on the kitchen floor, and finally the tears came. Not loud, not dramatic, just slow, steady rivers down her cheeks. A single sob escaped, raw and aching. Not for him, not for Natalie, but for the version of herself that still believed love was simple and loyalty was forever. And as night fell across the city, Claire whispered the words that marked the end of everything. I never saw it coming. But now, she would see everything. Chapter 2. The Perfect Lie. Act 2. The Fallout. The knock came in the morning. Claire hadn't slept. She had spent the night on the couch, not because she couldn't make it to bed, but because the bedroom felt tainted, like a museum of lies filled with shared sheets and whispered promises that now made her skin crawl. Every time she closed her eyes, Natalie's name flashed behind her lids. Her voice. Her laugh. Her betrayal. The knock came again, softer this time. Claire opened the door slowly. Natalie stood there, hair pulled into a low, trembling ponytail, mascara already smudged. She wasn't even pretending today. No smiles, no excuses. I just need to talk to you, she said, voice cracking. Claire stared at her. She didn't invite her in. Talk then. Natalie wrung her hands. It's not what you think. Claire's lips twitched. Not a smile, something darker. That's the first thing liars always say. Natalie flinched. I didn't mean for it to happen, Claire. I swear. He was in a bad place, and I was just trying to be there for him. I never thought it would go that far. I didn't want to hurt you. Then why did you do it? Claire asked quietly. Natalie opened her mouth, closed it. Claire stepped back a little and crossed her arms. Go ahead. I'm giving you one chance to tell the truth. All of it. Right now. Natalie's chin quivered. She stepped over the threshold, but didn't move farther than the doorway. Her voice dropped low. It was one night at first. You were out of town, and he called me. He said he couldn't breathe, that everything was falling apart. I thought he was having a panic attack. I came over. We talked. He cried. I stayed too long. Claire's heart pounded. So what? He needed a hug and you ended up in bed? No, Natalie said quickly. Not that night. It wasn't physical at first, I swear. He felt broken. And I knew what that looked like, Claire. I've been there. I saw the cracks in him, and for once, someone wasn't asking me to fix them. He needed me. And I didn't? Claire asked, stunned at how calm she still sounded. Natalie's eyes filled. You were always the strong one. He couldn't face you. He didn't want you to see how much he hated himself. The words hung in the air like smoke. Dense, suffocating. Claire stepped back. So instead, you offered yourself up? What was that? Charity? Or some twisted way of feeling wanted? I know how it sounds, Natalie whispered. It was wrong. All of it was wrong. But it wasn't about you. It was about two broken people clinging to the worst parts of themselves. Claire's throat tightened. And you still let me cry on your shoulder. You still told me I was paranoid. You looked me in the eye and told me nothing was going on. Natalie's voice cracked. Because I wanted it to be true. I didn't want to lose you. You lost me the moment you lied. Silence. Natalie wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. I'm so sorry. Claire nodded slowly. I believe you. Natalie looked up, surprised, hopeful. But I'm still done, Claire added, her voice like steel. Natalie's face crumbled. She reached out instinctively, and Claire stepped back. Don't. Just don't. And without another word, Natalie turned and left. Her shoulders hunched with the weight of a ruin she helped build. Daniel came back that night. Claire didn't open the door. He knocked. Then again. Then again. She sat on the couch, arms wrapped around herself, listening. "Claire, please." His voice came through, muffled. "I just want to talk. I need you to hear me." She didn't respond. He stood there for a long time before leaving. Later, she found an envelope slipped under the door. Inside, a letter, 3 pages long. His handwriting was shaky. He called it a mistake, said he never stopped loving her, that he was ashamed, that it meant nothing, that Natalie wasn't who he wanted, that he had been spiraling for months, that he hated who he became, that he hoped someday she could forgive him. Claire read it once, then again. She folded it in half, placed it in a drawer, and locked it. She wasn't ready to burn it, but she wasn't ready to forgive him either. The next few weeks passed in a fog. Food lost its taste. Sleep came in short, haunted spurts. Some mornings she woke up thinking it had all been a dream, until she turned over and found his side of the bed cold and empty. She didn't tell many people. The few friends she trusted either stammered through awkward sympathy or avoided her entirely. Some drifted away, too unsure which side to stand on. Others said things like, "I always thought they were a little too close." Useless hindsight. Work became her refuge. At least blueprints didn't lie. At least buildings didn't kiss your best friend and then tell you they still loved you. Still, even there, she caught herself zoning out. Once, she stared at a blank screen for 2 hours before realizing she hadn't moved. Her boss said nothing but gently suggested she take a few days. She didn't. What would she do at home? Sit on the couch and count the cracks? One night, a colleague named Liam found her in the break room, sitting on the floor with her back to the wall. He didn't ask what was wrong. He just sat beside her. After a while, he said, "Want me to tell you a really embarrassing story about my divorce?" She blinked at him, and he did. She laughed for the first time in weeks, not because it was that funny, but because someone had finally talked to her like a person and not a tragedy. But even with that flicker of light, the night still hurt. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was how easily everything had been erased, how quickly people stopped asking, as if the love she'd built her life around could be deleted like a typo. But Claire wasn't a typo. She was the entire damn sentence. And someday she would rewrite the ending. Chapter 3. Beneath the Surface. Act 3. The Hidden Truth. Claire always thought closure would come like a slam, loud, final, and obvious. But what came instead was a quiet itch, a gnawing sense that something still didn't make sense. It started with a phone call to the bank. She'd been trying to separate her finances from Daniel's. The process should have been simple, routine even. But then the advisor had asked about an unfamiliar withdrawal, a large one, a sum she didn't recognize. She jotted it down, a charge made 2 months before the breakup. Who takes out $10,000 in cash without mentioning it to their wife? Her stomach twisted. She didn't want to care. She didn't want to go digging. But some part of her knew, deep down, this wasn't just about infidelity. It was about who Daniel had become when she wasn't looking. That night, Claire opened the bottom drawer of Daniel's old desk, the one she never touched. It was still full of his things, receipts, junk, loose pens, a watch that no longer worked, and a small business card wedged between 2 books. Dr. Eileen Marks, clinical therapist, trauma recovery specialist. She stared at it for a long time. Daniel had never told her he was seeing anyone. No therapy, no sessions, no hints. If anything, he had always brushed her off whenever she asked how he was really doing. "I'm fine, just tired. Work's been crazy." He had built walls so high, she never realized she was on the outside until it was too late. A week later, Claire drove across town, parked in front of a small building with ivy curling around the front entrance, and sat in her car, debating what the hell she was doing. She wasn't here to beg for answers. She just needed clarity. She took a breath and walked inside. The receptionist looked up. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," Claire said. "But I think my ex-husband used to be a patient here, Daniel Porter. I'm not asking for records. The receptionist softened. "I'm sorry, I can't confirm or deny." "I know," Claire cut in gently, "but could you tell Dr. Marks someone came by? Someone trying to understand why the man she loved disappeared before he betrayed her." The woman looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll let her know." Claire left her number. She didn't expect a call. But 2 days later, Dr. Marks reached out. They met in a quiet cafe, off the record. Dr. Marks was in her 60s, composed, eyes kind but sharp. "I can't tell you specifics," she began, "but I can tell you this. Daniel was hurting, deeply, long before the affair." Claire folded her hands. "I never saw it." "That's not your fault," Dr. Marks said gently. "He was very good at hiding. Many people who spiral into self-sabotage are. But from what I observed, Daniel carried a lot of shame about his failures, about feeling less than, about disappointing people." Claire looked down. "He used to say I was the solid one, like he was just along for the ride." Dr. Marks nodded. "He felt undeserving, and when people feel that way long enough, they start pushing others away before they can be abandoned themselves." Claire swallowed hard. "Was it depression?" "I believe so. He struggled with anxiety, guilt, and underneath it all, he lacked self-worth. You were his anchor, Claire, but anchors can become mirrors, and he didn't like what he saw reflected back." Claire blinked back tears. "So he ran toward the one person who wouldn't judge him." Dr. Marks didn't answer. She didn't have to. Later that week, Claire called Natalie. The phone rang 5 times before the voice answered. "Claire?" "I need the truth," Claire said quietly. "All of it." There was a pause, then a sigh. "I was trying to save him, and maybe part of me thought, if I did, I'd feel like I was worth something too." "You're not the villain," Claire said, "but you're not innocent either." "I know." "Did you love him?" she asked. Natalie hesitated. "Not really. Not in the way you think. It was like drowning together." "That's not love." Claire closed her eyes. "Was he going to tell me?" Natalie exhaled shakily. "Yes, he was. He said he couldn't keep lying. He told me he was going to come clean, leave both of us, go away, fix himself. I begged him not to. I was scared." "When was this?" "The day before you found the message." Claire sat in silence. The irony was sharp enough to cut. So Daniel had been on the verge of choosing truth. Maybe not love, but truth. And she'd just beaten him to it. "I'm sorry," Natalie whispered. "I know it's not enough." "No, it's not," Claire replied. "But thank you for being honest." They didn't say goodbye. They didn't need to. That night, Claire lay awake in bed, not crying, just thinking. For the first time, she saw the betrayal not as a dagger to the heart, but as the symptom of something deeper. A man who couldn't face himself, a best friend who lost her footing, and a woman, herself, who deserved more than apologies and half-truths. It didn't make the pain go away, but it made it clearer. And in that clarity, there was space for something new to begin, not revenge, not even forgiveness yet, but understanding. And that was something. Act 4, Healing and New Beginnings. Claire didn't wake up one morning miraculously healed. There was no dramatic sunrise, no motivational playlist, no new me montage. Healing came the way winter thawed into spring. Subtle, quiet, almost imperceptible until she realized she hadn't thought about them, Daniel and Natalie, for an entire hour. Then a day. Then a weekend. Her home was still the same, but little by little, she made it hers again. She changed the locks, swapped out the bed, repainted the kitchen cabinets a pale sage green, and bought herself a new wine glass. Just one. Not because she expected to drink alone forever, but because she needed something that belonged to her alone without history attached. She cut her hair. Subtle, shoulder length, not out of defiance, but because she wanted to feel lighter. She started therapy. Once a week, she sat on a soft couch and spoke about the version of herself who always smiled through everything, who prioritized everyone else's emotions above her own. Her therapist helped her name things she had never thought to question: emotional labor, invisible grief, betrayal trauma, survival mode. Claire began journaling again. It wasn't pretty. Sometimes the pages were soaked in tears or scribbled with rage. Sometimes they were blank. But there was something powerful in putting it all down, unfiltered, unperformed. And slowly, almost like magic, she found herself laughing again. Smiling. Not the hollow kind, but the real, accidental kind. It was Liam who noticed first. They were working late on a Friday, reviewing final layouts for a client presentation. The office was nearly empty, just the hum of the copy machine and the occasional creak of old floorboards. Claire stood at the whiteboard, red marker in hand, explaining a revision with her sleeves rolled up and her hair in a loose, messy bun. And Liam smiled, not flirtatiously, not even with expectation, just warmly. "You look lighter," he said. Claire turned. Lighter? Yeah, he shrugged. Less like you're carrying the world on your back. She tilted her head. Is that your awkward way of saying I look better? He laughed. No, that's my awkward way of saying I'm glad you're coming back to yourself. Claire felt the words settle in her chest. They weren't romantic, but they meant something. So she smiled. Thanks. They didn't speak about it again. But after that night, they started talking more. Not about the past, about books, childhood pets, coffee orders, regret, and second chances. He told her about his own divorce, how it wasn't explosive, just sad, how he'd blamed himself for a long time, how he still sometimes woke up wondering if he'd failed too quietly. Claire listened, and he listened back. There was no flirtation, no forced chemistry, just comfort, space, safety. And in that space, something soft began to grow. Claire visited her mother one weekend. They sat on the back porch, sipping herbal tea while birds chirped in the garden. I'm proud of you, her mother said quietly, watching her from the corner of her eye. I was worried you'd disappear into your grief. Claire sipped her tea. I almost did. Her mother reached for her hand. But you didn't. No. Claire's gaze lingered on the sky. I'm starting to realize I never needed someone to save me. I just needed to stop apologizing for saving myself. Her mother smiled. That's my girl. One rainy Tuesday, Claire received a knock at her door. She opened it to find Natalie, umbrella dripping, eyes puffy. Claire's heart didn't race. She wasn't angry anymore, just tired. Natalie held out a small box. These were yours, from college. I found them when I moved out. Inside were old letters, friendship bracelets, movie stubs, fragments of a different life. I didn't come for forgiveness, Natalie said. I just wanted you to know I'm working on myself, alone, like I should have done years ago. Claire nodded. Good. There was silence, the kind that used to be unbearable. Now it just felt honest. I'm sorry, Natalie added, for everything and for not being strong enough to stop it when I could have. Claire didn't respond right away. Then she said, I forgive you. Natalie's eyes filled with tears. But we're not going back, Claire added gently. I wish you well, but my life's different now. Natalie nodded, voice breaking. I understand. And just like that, she left. Claire watched her walk away, umbrella bobbing against the rain, and closed the door. Not with bitterness, with peace. That night, Liam texted her a photo of a book he thought she'd like. They exchanged a few messages, easy, light, but layered with unspoken care. When he wrote, I'm around if you ever want to talk or just not be alone. Claire didn't panic. She smiled and replied, I'll let you know. She wasn't ready to fall in love. But maybe she was ready to let someone walk beside her as she learned how to trust again. And that, she thought, was a beginning worth waiting for. Chapter 5. A Different Kind of Love. Act 5. Closure and Peace. The sun was shining, but the air was cool. The kind of autumn morning that made the world feel new. Claire walked through the old part of town, the leaves crunching under her boots, coffee warming her hands. She passed a bookstore, then a florist, then the photography studio, where she and Daniel had once posed for their wedding portraits. She stopped for a moment, watching a young couple inside, laughing awkwardly as the photographer adjusted their pose. She didn't feel the stab anymore, just a soft ache, like touching an old scar. Daniel had asked to meet her. His voice on the phone had been hesitant, respectful, not desperate, just honest. I'd like to see you, he'd said. No expectations, I just owe you a real goodbye. So she said yes, not for him, for herself. They met in a quiet park. The same one where he'd proposed, years ago. It felt like watching a past life from the outside. Daniel looked thinner, older, more tired, but also more grounded. They sat on opposite ends of the bench. I won't pretend I'm fine, he said, staring at the lake. I'm not, but I'm in therapy. I'm trying to figure out why I destroyed the best thing I ever had. Claire listened. Silent. I don't expect you to forgive me, he added. I just needed to say, thank you, for loving me the way you did, and I'm sorry I couldn't love you the way you deserved. Claire nodded slowly. I did love you. I know. She turned to him. But I love myself more now. That made him smile, sadly but genuinely. Good. I'm glad. They sat in silence for a while. Then he stood. Take care, Claire. You too. No tears. No lingering touches. Just two people letting go of a chapter that had already ended. Back at home, Claire pulled a box out of the closet. Inside were old photos, a copy of their wedding invitation, the framed portrait, still unbroken, still untouched. She didn't throw them out. She wasn't bitter. Just done. She placed the box in the attic, a part of her story, but not her future. Liam invited her to a book fair the following weekend. It wasn't a date, not officially. They browsed aisles, made fun of pretentious cover blurbs, and shared a greasy street pretzel on a bench. At one point, he bought her a secondhand copy of The Little Prince, said it reminded him of her. She smiled, surprised. "You think I'm that poetic?" "No," he said, "but I think you're someone who knows what's important, even when it hurts." She tucked the book under her arm, warmth blooming in her chest. The next few months unfolded like quiet waves. No grand declarations, no sweeping romance, just consistent, gentle kindness. Liam didn't ask her to be someone she wasn't. He never rushed, never pushed. He simply showed up, with tea, with bad jokes, with a steadiness she hadn't known she needed. One evening, they sat on her couch, shoulders touching, both half asleep after watching a documentary neither one had really followed. Claire turned to him. "Do you think it's possible to fall in love with someone, even when you're still learning how to love yourself?" Liam didn't hesitate. "I think that's the only real kind of love there is." She smiled softly and leaned her head on his shoulder. Months later, while rearranging the storage closet, Claire found the wedding photo again. It had dust on it now, the smiles frozen in time. She didn't cry. She didn't even flinch. She placed it back in the box, then walked back into the living room, where Liam was helping her hang a new painting, a quiet watercolor of a sunrise. He looked at her. "Ready?" She nodded. He lifted the frame, and together they centered it on the wall. A new beginning. Not with fireworks, but with soft light and steady hands. As Claire walked past the attic door later that evening, she paused. For a second, her gaze lingered on it. Then she smiled and kept walking forward, fingers laced with someone else's, not because she had forgotten who she used to be, but because she had finally come home to herself. If this story moved you, made you feel seen, or reminded you that healing is possible, even after the deepest betrayal, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another emotional journey. We share love stories that aren't just about romance, but about resilience, growth, and starting over. Thank you for watching. And remember, sometimes the most powerful kind of love is the one you find within yourself. See you in the next story.